Tony D and Little Joan, and this is a screenwriter's take on Anora, I guess you would call it a romance movie slash rom-com about a stripper who hits it big with one of her clients, the son of a Russian oligarch. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. The links are in the description. Comedy horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys books 1 through 16, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. This movie had a surprising amount of laughs in it for me. Mikey Madison stars, and she really does a great job. She threw herself completely into this character, and it's a lot of fun. As always, I'll start with my non-spoiler review. That guy, he was funny. A lot of these guys are pretty funny. I'll do the non-spoiler review, and then we'll get into the spoilers, okay? So my non-spoiler review is this. It's a really interesting film. Hey. Come here. Sorry. It's a very interesting film. Pretty funny. Not as romantic as I expected. I expected to be a little more romantic. Had way more nudity in it than I thought. I was fine with that because there's some quality boobies in this movie. And it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I would say for dating purposes, this movie is probably not a good movie to watch with your date who, if they've never seen it, if you're new to dating, right? If you're just starting to get to know someone, this movie's got a lot of sexual stuff in it. So I think you probably want to be in a thing a couple of months at least before you watch something like this, unless your potential person is obviously okay with some more spicier scenes. But it's a small consideration. It's a pretty good film. It does sort of wallow a little bit in the first act's antics, which and I'm not giving anything away. The Russian oligarch's son is just spending money and partying nonstop, and that gets a little tiresome in the first act. But other than that, once you get to the second act and things start happening, the guys who steal the scene are the Russian oligarch's henchmen. Those guys steal every scene they're in, and that gets very funny. Mikey is, they sometimes say of actresses, and I think they said this of her, that she is a force of nature. She really is in this movie. She is a loud, bold personality, and she tears up the screen. Just absolutely demolishes every scene she's in a good way. She is not phoning it in at all. She's 100% there. And I really appreciated that. This is also the same actress that said that basically criticized intimacy coordinators. I don't know how you even have an intimacy coordinator on a movie like this. There was a ton of sex and a ton of nudity in it. I mean, I'm not saying it's porn level unless you're a real prude, but there's a lot of nudity in it, especially in the second half of the first act, I'll say. And that first act is the only part that's slow. After we get into the second act, it really picks up and is very steady all the way to the end. And then the ending is very surprising, I will say. I watched it with my girlfriend, and she liked it a lot. She cried at the end, and I can't really get into why without spoiling the movie, but if you think about it, there is a moment there that's kind of sad. And I'll explain in the spoiler review. Okay, so that's my non-spoiler review. I would recommend this movie, except to people who maybe don't like a lot of sexual stuff. Um, you know, I wouldn't watch it with your parents, in other words. Anyhow, here's the spoilers ahoy. So, first act, Anora, or Annie, is a Russian girl who works as a stripper. And as a lot of strippers do, they often work as high-end escorts for select clients that they meet while they're at the strip club. And, they hook a big fish, as it were, right? So some rich D-bag comes into this club, starts throwing money around like there's no tomorrow. The next thing you know, the stripper is dating him, quote unquote, for money, essentially. So that's what happens in this. It starts off with Anora, and she's a regular at the strip club, but she speaks Russian, so they pair her up with the Russian oligarch's son because he wants a Russian-speaking girl to hang out with him. So, of course, at the strip club, the move is for the stripper to get contact info of the client, and of the potential client. So she gets his number and then contacts him outside the club because the club doesn't want to be liable for any of these shenanigans, and then goes to see him and has sex with him for money, essentially being a prostitute. So he likes her so much, he just keeps paying her, and they keep going out. And he eventually hires her for a whole week for $15,000, which is pretty funny. But he's got money to burn, so who cares? And they have such a great time. They start joking around. They go to Las Vegas, and they start joking around that if they were married, they could, stay together. And so he basically they go back and forth about getting married, and then basically they get married. He buys her like a 5-carat ring, and now they're married. Well, word gets back to his parents back in Russia, and they're extremely pissed off. But the Russian oligarch's guys in the States, or at least there's 2 in the States, and then there's one, I think he's in Azerbaijan, and he's in the middle of a ceremony with a christening of someone in his family, and he leaves the middle of it to go take care of the oligarch's son. In other words, clean up his mess. So the second act starts the moment they get married. The wind up there, like I said, gets a little tiresome. All the partying and stuff, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop, but eventually they get there in the second act when they get married. Once they get married, things kick into high gear. The henchmen come over and confront the kid, and he's like, come on, let's just run. And like Annie doesn't quite understand what the hell's going on, and he just leaves her. And the 2 henchmen got to deal with Anora, and she like kind of beats them up. And but they capture her, and then the guy who left the christening shows up, and he's sort of like the mid-level supervisor here. He has to clean up the mess for his boss, and he just pulls out every stop to do it. He eventually convinces Anora that this is going to happen. You're going to have the marriage annulled. I'll give you $10K, and then you got to never contact him again. And she conditionally agrees to that if she could talk to Ivan or Vanya. And so they spend like the entire night looking for the kid. And they go everywhere, like all the places they went during their dating, every club that Anora can think of that he visits, and various things happen. Like the one guy, one of the henchmen, she kicked in the face so hard, he thinks he has a concussion, and he starts swelling up. And then during the car ride, he finally vomits, because that's like a symptom of concussion. You might vomit. So I think he has a concussion, and then he throws up all over the car, and they have to stop and clean it up. So all these wacky things happen. but it's very grounded in reality. So there were moments in the movie I thought, oh, she's going to end up dead. They're just going to kill her. That's going to be the end of the movie, because it kind of has an indie movie feel to it. But thankfully that didn't happen. I think it would have been a real downer, because I was getting so much enjoyment of seeing Anora give the henchman such a problem. And one of the henchmen you see is really nice to Anora. But he's the one that initially like kind of holds her down to keep her from running away, and she really seems to hate him, right? So then they spend all night looking for Ivan. They finally catch up to him, and he's so blotto he can barely stand. And Honora's trying to reach him and say, don't let him get us divorced. Like, she's really now into the marriage. And it's an interesting contrast, because they show Anora in the beginning of the movie teasing all the simps in the strip club, right? So in strip clubs, the strippers are trying to get as much money out of the customers as they can. It's not unlike OnlyFans girls, only it's live, and the clients get the touch, to some extent, get the touch the strippers, depending. So, they draw that comparison, and then it seems like Anora has actually fallen in love, maybe with Ivan, or really liked him, that she really started to picture herself in that role. And she tries as hard as she can to make it work, but the parents aren't having it. And Vanya is he's just a spoiled a-hole, and he doesn't fight for her at all. And eventually she agrees to the divorce. They go into New York to get divorced, only to realize that they got married in Las Vegas, and now they have to travel all the way to Vegas to get the thing annulled there. And during the trip, that's when Vanya he's just so irresponsible that she's just like, well, he doesn't love me. And it's not so much about love, but he doesn't stick up for her at all. But during this entire sort of second into the third act, the one henchman, the bald henchman, is trying to care for Anora. He's doing little things. He offers her a scarf. He tries to be supportive. He clearly likes her. And so in the final act, they get annulled, and then they actually pay her. I was a little worried they might just kill her at the end, but that didn't happen. So they do pay her her $10K, and she has to agree never to go near him again. But he's going back to Russia anyway. And so the bald guy takes Anora home after getting her the money, and as a last gesture before she gets out of the car, he hands her back her wedding ring, which got taken earlier in the movie. And he says, don't tell the other guys. And so then Anora closes the door and starts to have sex with him in the car. But as they're having sex, and this is the big finish of the movie, so this is the biggest spoiler of the movie. I'm going to ruin it for you, so I'm warning you. So as they're having sex, the bald guy kind of pulls her down to kiss her, and she gets furious at him and then starts crying. Now, throughout the whole movie, Anora didn't kiss. I don't think she kissed Ivan. And that's a rule in escorting, that they don't kiss their clients. I don't think she kissed him. She may have. She may have in a couple of scenes. She must have. But a lot of scenes were just sex with him. And it's clear that the henchman likes her and is a nicer guy, let's say. He actually will stick up for her, is the implication. And because he's doing nice things for her without anything in return. And Anora is just calling him all sorts of nasty names. So it's that moment of intimacy that she kind of finally breaks, I think. Um, and that's why my girlfriend cried at the end, because she cried, the Anora cries, and you could see her take on it was that she was broken from the events of the movie. I don't think that's the case. I think her character was too strong to be broken by the other characters. I think the intimacy is what breaks her. And so that was it came out of left field, came out of nowhere ending. Really surprising and interesting film. An interesting character who goes on a journey, and we're there through the whole journey. And keep in mind, too, as a stripper and sex worker, she does just about anything in the movie. Not everything. Obviously, they're not going to show you porn in a movie like this. This is a mainstream movie, but she does a lot. And she is naked through quite a bit of the movie. And she looks great, by the way. This is Mikey Madison. And bully for her for doing this movie. Because she didn't have an ounce of hesitation that I could detect at all. You know, when Demi Moore did her stripper thing back in the day, she looked great. She seemed to be into it, but it seemed to be acting. She didn't seem to be genuinely into it. This character, yeah, she's good. I mean, I really believe she was a stripper. And her accent really works in the movie. And you know, you get that big revelation at the end. I really wasn't sure where this movie was going to the end. In a couple of scenes, I thought, oh my God, they're going to kill her because it's a Russian oligarch. And then in some moments, I thought, oh, maybe Vanya will come back and save her and they'll run away together. So it was a realistic ending in that world, because the oligarchs do have that kind of money. And it's $10,000 to them. And I'm sure they would rather not have someone murdered if they can possibly avoid it for a piddling amount of money to them. There was an amazing scene in which Anora rips the oligarch's son, and the oligarch laughs. But clearly his mother is in charge. But the oligarch, who's sort of like, he's kind of whipped by his wife, but he starts laughing. And because he sort of admires, I think, Anora's attitude. Man, what a performance by Mikey Madison. Really great performance. And she's a smoke show throughout, so that doesn't hurt. So there's a lot of boobies in this, and that don't hurt either. A+ movie, fellas. I know. It's essentially a rom-com in a lot of ways, except for that ending. And you know, I didn't know what I was expecting. More of the romance. Nah, not a tremendous amount of that, because the relationship between Anora and Vanya isn't really all that real. It's kind of real to her at some point. It was kind of real to him a little bit, but ultimately, when the henchmen tell her the truth about Vanya, they're right. You know, he's a little kid. He doesn't take responsibility. You're not going to stay married to him. His parents can't allow this, and they were right. They were right. So it's really good in that respect. Like it plays out. And the henchmen, they're all beaten up. Or the one guy's beat. The bald guy who likes her gets a little banged up, but not super banged up. Yeah, this is one to see. If you're on your second date, this is not the movie you want to see. I don't think. It's a little spicy for a second date, but you know, if you've been together for a month or two, I think probably, you know, at that point you can probably handle things, unless your, you know, date is you know, super religious or something, doesn't like the spicier movies. It's pretty spicy. there's a lot of scenes where Anora's having sex with Vanya, and it's not like they're showing anything graphic, but they're just like going at it constantly. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and the ending makes sense. Everything in this movie makes sense. Mikey, I'll warn you in advance, has that sort of Brooklyn accent, a bit of Fran Drescher without too much of the nasal, and you're kind of really rooting for her. You kind of really are, you know. So I thought it was an interesting film, and I recommend it. And at the very least, you get to see boobies. And that's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Thanks to all who came out to the Hamilton Center at 2 p.m. I had screwed up the time. I apologize again for that. At 2 p.m. for my talk on how to hunt the Jersey Devil. It was a great day. Saturday, I will be at the I Heart Horror Convention in Sayreville, New Jersey from 11 to 7. I just double-checked that. Having a Monday. I'm having a Monday. Saturday will be the I Heart Horror Convention in Sayreville from 11 to 7. That should be a really interesting time. There's going to be a lot of cool horror guests there, and I'll be there. I'll have Pineys books, so hope to see you on Saturday. We'll see you tomorrow.